Today is Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, and it's my last sort of week of freedom, having been given some significant time off for the whole COVID thing. As some of you already know, I actually tested positive for the COVID virus about a month ago, and after that sort of ran through the gauntlet of vague minor symptoms sort of alternating for a few weeks, and then eventually late April is when I tested negative for COVID virus, and my employer is probably going to put me back on the schedule starting on Sunday. So this first full week of May is kind of my last opportunity perhaps to get out of town for a while, at least for as many as 4 days here. I'm looking at a backpacking trip that covers about 74 miles. According to bikepacker.com, it's called a San Rafael Swell Night Out loop, something like that. So it goes to a couple of spots that I've been to before, including Chute Canyon, and also I'll probably end up stopping at Hidden Splendor, where I can access some water there at Muddy Creek. Then I also have the option to stop and grab water and maybe camp at the put-in for the Muddy Creek float. So anyway, yeah, there's supposedly a 0% chance of rain throughout the rest of this week. This is one of the areas where you're pretty much, I don't know, maybe half the time you're going to see wild burros or wild horses. And sure enough, this is pretty much the exact same spot. I saw them on a visit here back, must have been February last year. Anyway, really looking forward to testing out my skills in what will be my longest desert environment ride in an area that I love. So we'll see how I go. After a night of car camping tonight, I'll head out in the morning and tackle this loop going clockwise.
I saw you there, waiting outside. I couldn't tell if you were not meant before tonight. When I asked you for a light, I think you first, you were a little bit shy, a bit reserved. Could see in your eyes the time was right, and our night's not over yet. Is it too late to fall in love tonight? 'Cause I'm falling out. Is it too late to fall in love tonight? 'Cause I'm falling out.
Today is May 6th, and I'm about 11.5 miles in to this Swell Night Out loop here. Just made it up and around Temple Mountain, choosing the gnarlier east side of Temple Mountain, where there's kind of a maze of different Jeep roads. And I was coming down, and yeah, blew out my front tire here. Fortunately, I had a little bit of recent experience changing out the back tire after the tube popped on my last trip that I did last week. So hopefully I can get back on the trail before long. I did bring a spare tube, and yeah, it's just after 2 o'clock now, so still hoping to get to Chute Canyon, where I camped a few years ago on a backpacking trip out of the Little Wild Horse Canyon area. And yeah, we'll see how I go. All right, so changing that tire took me about 30 minutes, but it gave me a chance to chill out in the shade a little bit and yeah, examine some of this historical trash or old abandoned mining equipment here. And yeah, I'll be back on my way here shortly to the Behind the Reef Road area. I'm really looking forward to that. I've already passed Wild Horse Canyon, and now I'm approaching Crack Canyon, the namesake of the Crack Canyon Wilderness Study Area. And from there, I'll be looking for the next canyon, which is Chute Canyon. Beautiful scenery here, though, here in early May, and a real treat to have mountain bike support on this return to the Crack Canyon Wilderness area. I did make it to Chute Canyon, which was the goal for today. And I even found the same cottonwood tree that I camped under last time I was here. And I wanted to say hi to the bumblebees, but they are either sleeping or they don't live here anymore. But there is one bumblebee that just started buzzing around, but I haven't seen him coming and going from this nest that they had built in the tree here. But maybe once the sun comes back tomorrow and hits the tree, they'll be alive and kicking again. I started with 6 liters of water and I'm down to 2 liters of water, which if I don't find water tonight, that should get me to the next source. But hopefully I can find some if I wander a little further down the canyon, just like I did last time. There was a slow flow from what appeared to be a spring, and hopefully that one's still flowing. I'm about to find out. So maybe a mile down Chute Canyon from where I'm camped, indeed there is the sort of slow seep coming out, where there's some tire tracks here. But there appears to be some of that white residue as well, which usually indicates like an alkaline source. So I'm going to take my chances and hope that the alkaline source will be filterable and yeah, not make me feel too weird. This puddle right here appears to be the most promising for scooping, so I'll see how I go. Approaching the magic hour here in Chute Canyon. I was able to scoop over 6 liters, maybe 7 or 8 liters, which should get me to Muddy Creek and further tomorrow. Ideally, I will not need to scoop out of Muddy Creek, and maybe with lower temperatures tomorrow, down in the lower 80s instead of the lower 90s, it'll be easier to not drink as much water. But anyway, it's nice to get ahead on the water hauling, especially when I know I have a mountain bike to haul it on. So I'm just gonna head back, enjoy a rehydrated backpacker meal, and call it a night and roll out in the morning towards one of the Muddy Creek campsites after covering a little over 20 miles today.
Digging for gold in my neighborhood, where all the old buildings stood. And they keep digging it down and down, so that the cars can live underground. The swinging of a wrecking ball through these laughing plaster walls is letting all the shadows free. The ones I wish still followed me, followed me, followed me.
So far this morning I've passed Little Wild Horse Canyon, Bell Canyon, and now I'm approaching Ding and Dang Canyons, the upper portions. So far I've seen 2 people hiking, so just the 2 non-motorized folks. Other than that, I've seen a few trucks, a couple ATVs, and a couple of motocross bikes. But yeah, not a whole lot of people out this first full week of May. It's worth mentioning that Emery County, where this part of San Rafael Swell is located, did relax their camping regulations, having made them more restricted during the month of April. Yeah, they're now open to backcountry camping for everyone who can do it responsibly with the social distancing and all.
Follow me, follow me. I remember a winter's night, a kiss beneath the street lamp light, outside our bar near the record store, that have been condos for a year and more. Now that our haunts have taken flight and been replaced with construction sites, oh, how I feel like a stranger here, searching for something that's disappeared. Digging for gold in my neighborhood, for what they say is the greater good. But all I see is a long goodbye, a requiem for a skyline. It seems I never stop losing you, as every dive becomes something new, and all our ghosts get swept away. It didn't used to be this way.
Well, that was a treat. Hiking the westernmost section of the Behind the Reef Road here. On some maps, it's not even called Behind the Reef Road. That actually broke off further east of here. In any case, it's been a really beautiful section, and I just had a very pleasant surprise meeting Joey and Jarl, who both have their own YouTube channels, one of which I enjoyed very much recently. Joey posted all about his Tonto Trail, and I believe it's called Royal Arch Loop, that they did in the Grand Canyon right before all this coronavirus stuff started really going down. So definitely want to recommend their channels. I intend to check out Jarl's channel too. I believe it's called Norwegian Explorer. But yeah, I can't remember the name of Joey's channel, but yeah, he's quite well known in YouTube circles. So I'll be sure to put the name of his channel here and provide a link in the description also. And yeah, it's pretty clear that I'm not going to make it to Tomsich Butte tonight like I had sort of hoped. There's just so much up and down here along the Behind the Reef Road. It really slowed me down. I'm not going to be able to do as many miles as I did yesterday. And I'm down to my last 1.5 liters of water, and I'm kind of a thirsty boy. So better that I go and camp at Hidden Splendor tonight, where I was back in March. The last trip I did before COVID is going to overlap with the first trip I'm doing after COVID. So in any case, I know there's some great camping to be had there. The water source isn't ideal, but it's a water source, so it'll have to do for tonight, and we'll see how I go.
Didn't used to be this way, be this way, be this way. Please don't change. Be this way.
Today is Friday, May 8th, and yeah, spent a nice quiet night here at Hidden Splendor. Was able to source a couple gallons of water from Muddy Creek, and yeah, as long as there's like some lemon powder or some other thirst quencher powder or something to add to it, it doesn't taste bad actually. So yeah, I'm gonna hope for the best with that. And yeah, after studying the map for a bit last night, I discovered that Tomsich Butte, where I had hoped to camp last night, it's still about 20 miles from the car, and that would be too long of a trip for me to make tomorrow and then drive back home. So decided that I'll have to hold off and visit Tomsich Butte some other time in the Hondu Country over there. I'm sure I'll be back in San Rafael Swell before too long. And instead, there is a shorter route that goes closer to Baptist Draw. So I'm about to head out here and push on more straight north without that westward side trip. And yeah, maybe camp closer to the car, or maybe even make it all the way back to the car today. And yeah, make an early departure tomorrow. And with that, I'll see how I go. As I try some different flavoring combinations to make the Muddy Creek water more palatable, the lemonade is going to be my trail tip. For a 32-ounce Nalgene, if you take 1 true lemon, 1 true lime, and 1 stevia packet, you will not be disappointed. And pretty soon here I'll be needing to make a decision on whether I want to check out Baptist Draw on this trip and make a night of it over there before pedaling back to the car tomorrow, or just pedaling back to the car tonight. I'm feeling a little more like I'll just go ahead and wrap it up at that junction where I started a couple days ago. It'd be nice to be able to have a comfortable car camping situation tonight, and yeah, have access to some things that I'm starting to run out of. So it's definitely been a great trip as far as what I've learned. Definitely learned that kind of like toilet paper, you want to make sure that you bring a little more sunscreen than you think you'll need, especially in you know, just such a exposed sort of desert vibe like this for, you know, consecutive days. Make sure you have plenty of that. You also want to make sure that certainly you have your water sources dialed in. If the water had not been available in Chute Canyon, I probably would have been struggling, but fortunately it was there even as late as early to mid-May. And yeah, aside from that, if you are on a bike like I am, be sure you bring the extra tools and preferably 1 or 2 spare tires as well. Definitely found that came in handy for me. I would have been yeah, having a much shorter trip if I didn't have that spare tire or spare tube and then didn't know how to put it back on. So yeah, it's always a lot to learn out here in the San Rafael Swell. whether it be how to navigate the terrain or otherwise. But I'm going to continue on towards McKay Flat, where it appears that the antelope and the horse are both enjoying it as well, and see how I go. One of my favorite things about the San Rafael Swell is the Wild West history. That includes the wild horses or burros that are left over from the Spanish Trail days, believed to be descended from escaped horses that were present dating back to the mid-1800s. It's at times like this when I'm reminded a little bit of that chapter of Desert Solitaire where Edward Abbey is tracking a wild horse and hoping to capture what was a runaway horse. This particular horse is quite a bit better looking, I think, than the horse described in Desert Solitaire, though. Aside from the wild horses, there's also some antelope or pronghorn in the mix, it appears. Having come about 14 miles so far, and with only 5 miles left to go to get back to the Tan Seep well where I left my car, I'm going to go ahead and push on and wrap up this loop. It'll end up being roughly 55 or 56 miles because I skipped the leg that goes further west of here. But hopefully I can come back and explore that area some other time. I don't want to forget to mention some trail magic that I had yesterday. It was minor but still appreciated. There was a guy camping with his friends and family down at Hidden Splendor. A guy named Joe. He hooked me up with some of his sunscreen. Yeah, just kind of as an insurance policy because I was running kind of low. I want to just extend gratitude in his direction and really enjoyed my chat with him about Music Canyon and Quandary Canyon and a couple of the other surrounding areas to Hidden Splendor there. Also want to say thanks for the about a liter of ice cold water that was given to me by Debbie or Deborah out of her four-wheeler there in the Quandary Canyon area yesterday as well. Even though I didn't necessarily need it at the time, it sure was nice to have it ice cold and not sourced from Chute Canyon or Muddy Creek. I've seen a bunch more motorized vehicles today. Guess that's no surprise since I'm walking through the heart of Sinbad, but also got to see some wildlife and who knows what on the last 5 miles out. We'll see how I go.
I've ascribed these monuments a false sense of permanence. I've placed faith in geography to hold you in my memory. I'm sifting through these wreckage piles, through the rubble of bricks and wires, looking for something I'll never find, looking for something I'll never find. Digging for coal in my neighborhood, where all the old buildings stood, and they keep digging it down and down, so that their cars can live underground.
On my way back to the car after lunch, my water bottle broke off, which was quite a surprise. But I drove back and look what I found. Yay! I'll need to buy a new water bottle holster, but I'm really glad to have this old Nalgene bottle back, still full of lemonade from the batch that I made earlier.